Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Awesome. Today, we're tackling something super interesting. It's a trend you might have heard of. Passport bros.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been making the rounds online.
It has. So for anyone who might not know, we're talking about American men, specifically, who are disillusioned with dating in the U.S.
Right.
And they're starting to look elsewhere for love, particularly in Asia.
Yeah, and it's that contrast that's really got people talking, right? What is it about dating here that's got these men feeling so turned off?
Exactly.
And then on the flip side, what is it about Asian cultures that they find so attractive?
Yeah, we're going to try to unpack all of that today, get into the motivations, look at the cultural dynamics.
The whole picture.
Yeah, and try to understand what's really going on here.
Absolutely.
To do that, we've got a ton of sources, articles, personal stories, expert opinions, the whole works.
You name it.
So yeah, we're going to dive into all of that and see what we can learn.
Let's do it.
Cool. So first things first, I think it's important to define what we actually mean when we say passport bro, the term itself.
Yeah, for sure.
Where did it come from?
Well, it's interesting. The term really started gaining traction online, especially on platforms like TikTok and YouTube.
Right, social media.
Exactly. Social media has definitely played a huge role in spreading the term, but it's become more than just a label. It's almost like a whole mindset now.
A movement even.
Kind of, yeah. And a big part of that mindset seems to be this disillusionment with the American dating scene.
Yeah, and specifically, I've seen a lot of these guys online talking about how materialistic and transactional dating in the U.S. has become.
Oh, absolutely. That's a recurring theme for sure.
Yeah.
This feeling that it's all about appearances, money, status.
And less about genuine connection.
Right, and these men feel like they're being judged based on what they can provide rather than who they are as people.
Which brings us to the push factors, right? The things that are pushing these men away from dating in America.
Yeah. Exactly. They're feeling pushed out by these high expectations, the pressure to have a certain income level, a fancy career.
The whole 9 yards.
Right, and it's not just about escaping the negative. There's also a strong pull factor at play here, too.
Definitely. This isn't just a one-sided thing.
No, not at all. There's something specific that's drawing these men to Asian cultures in particular.
I've noticed that a lot of them talk about traditional values, traditional relationship dynamics.
Yeah, they see those things as more prevalent in Asian cultures, and it's appealing to them.
You know, things like a strong emphasis on family, women who are more committed, who prioritize traditional gender roles, things like that.
Right. They see it as a refreshing change from what they perceive as the more individualistic, maybe even chaotic dating scene in the U.S.
But here's where we have to be careful, right?
Mm.
Because we're starting to tread into potentially dangerous territory.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We have to be mindful of falling into stereotypes and oversimplifications.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of this trend and start romanticizing entire cultures based on just a few perceived values.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly harmful.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Are all Asian women really submissive or family-oriented?
Of course not. It's ridiculous to even think that.
It's a huge generalization.
Right. We're talking about millions of individuals with their own unique personalities, values, and aspirations.
Exactly. We have to remember that every person is different. And painting with such a broad brush is not only inaccurate.
It really perpetuates harmful stereotypes.
It does. So while it makes sense that someone might want a partner who shares their values, you can't just assume that an entire group of people based on where they're from are all going to be the same.
Right. It's crucial to approach this with an open mind and be willing to see individuals, not stereotypes.
Couldn't agree more. Now, something I'm really curious about is the perspective of the women involved in all of this.
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial part of the story.
We've talked about why these men are going abroad, but what about the women they're looking to connect with?
What are their experiences? What are their motivations?
Exactly. Their voices often get lost in this whole conversation, and we need to make sure we're hearing them too.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears a little and start exploring that side of things.
Sounds good to me.
It's important to remember that for a lot of women in Asia, a relationship with a foreign man can be seen as a path to a better life.
Yeah, and I think it's important to acknowledge that better life doesn't always just mean romantic love.
Right. It can be tied to economic opportunities.
Exactly. A chance to maybe escape difficult circumstances back home.
Precisely. And, some women genuinely value the companionship and stability that these men might offer.
And let's be honest, financial security can be a big factor too.
Oh, especially in countries with economic disparities.
Yeah, it could be a way to support their families or build a more secure future for themselves.
Absolutely.
But doesn't that create a potential power imbalance in the relationship?
It's definitely a valid concern and something we need to be aware of. I
Yeah.
mean, these relationships, they exist on a spectrum.
Yeah.
Some are built on genuine affection and respect,
Absolutely.
while others might be more transactional in nature.
Yeah, where one person has more power or leverage than the other.
Right.
And then there's this societal pressure these women face.
Oh, absolutely.
I've heard stories about women being labeled as gold diggers
Oh, yeah.
or accused of using these relationships just to immigrate. That's got to add another layer of complexity to the situation.
It does. It's really tough. And those judgments, they're often rooted in stereotypes and misconceptions.
Which are never helpful.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They completely fail to acknowledge the individual agency and motivations of the women involved.
Right, like assuming that every woman who marries a foreign man is only after his money or a green card is just ridiculous.
Completely. It's so reductive.
It is, and it's dehumanizing.
It is. And it
Yeah.
prevents us from really understanding what's going on in these relationships.
It's exactly. Love and relationships are complicated enough as it is,
Right.
especially when you throw in cultural differences.
Exactly. You can't just categorize these things or boil them down to simple explanations.
So we really need to make an effort to listen to the women involved, hear their stories.
Absolutely. What are their hopes, their dreams, their challenges?
What do they value in these relationships?
Yeah, what are their concerns?
We need to go beyond the generalizations and engage with their experiences on a deeper level.
I agree completely.
So to get a better grasp on all of this, let's bring in some real-life stories and insights from our research.
Okay, sounds good.
We interviewed some passport bros for this deep dive.
Oh, cool.
And also spoke to some experts in cross-cultural relationships.
Awesome.
And one story that stood out to me was about this man who found a really deep connection with his wife, who's Filipina.
Okay.
He talked about feeling this sense of stability and warmth that he'd been searching for back in the U.S.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was really sweet. But he also admitted that it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Oh, of course not.
There were challenges, too.
What kinds of challenges?
Well, he had to learn to adapt to her cultural expectations,
Right.
which were quite different from what he was used to.
That makes sense.
It took a lot of communication and compromise.
Yeah, you have to be willing to step outside your comfort zone.
Exactly.
And that's true for any relationship, but especially when you're navigating cultural differences as well.
And I think his experience really highlights the fact that these relationships, while they can be incredibly rewarding, they also require effort, patience, a commitment to growth from both sides.
Absolutely.
It's not just a romantic escape.
Right.
It's a journey of discovery and adaptation.
I love that. It challenges the notion that these passport bros are just looking for an easy way out.
Right. Or a relationship without any challenges.
In reality, these relationships can be just as complex and demanding as any other.
If not more so, because of the added cultural layer.
Precisely.
Now, if we zoom out a bit, what does the rise of this phenomenon tell us about the bigger picture?
Interesting question.
I mean, we're talking about changing demographics,
Right.
evolving social norms, the impact of globalization and technology on how we connect with each other.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It is. It's like this trend is a reflection of these larger forces at play.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It speaks to this growing interconnectedness of our world, right?
Absolutely.
Where geography matters less and less.
And people are more open to relationships outside of their immediate cultural circles.
Exactly. It's really fascinating.
It is, and it raises some big questions about the future of love and relationships,
Like, are we moving towards a more globalized dating landscape?
where cultural differences are seen as assets.
Yeah, or do these relationships highlight a clash of cultures?
A struggle to reconcile those deeply ingrained beliefs about gender roles, about societal expectations.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, and I think that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating.
Yeah.
Regardless of how these individual relationships turn out, the passport bro phenomenon really forces us to confront these questions head on. It does.
Right.
It makes us examine our own cultural biases.
And how they influence our views on love and relationships.
Exactly. Like what we consider normal in a partner.
Or desirable.
It's often heavily influenced by our upbringing and the society we live in.
Yeah.
So it's all about awareness, right?
Being aware of those biases.
And being open to different perspectives.
Exactly.
Which brings us to what might be the most important question of all.
Okay, I'm listening.
What does all of this mean for us?
as individuals.
As a society?
This isn't just about passport bros anymore.
Right.
It's about the very nature of love and relationships in an increasingly interconnected world.
That's deep.
Yeah, it really makes you think about how much we just take for granted when it comes to relationships.
Doesn't it? Our own cultural norms, I mean, we just sort of assume they're universal, but they're really not. And when you start seeing things from a different perspective, well, it can really challenge those assumptions.
For sure. So as we wrap up our deep dive on passport bros, I'm left with this question. Is this a sign of things to come? Like, is this a glimpse into the future of love in a globalized world?
Well, it's an interesting thought, right? Like, globalization and technology are breaking down those physical barriers.
Totally.
It's easier than ever to connect with people from all over the world.
Yeah, like distance doesn't really matter as much anymore.
Not really, no. So it makes sense that romantic relationships would start to cross borders more and more.
Exactly, but it's not just about physical distance, right?
No.
It's about those cultural boundaries, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Are we really becoming more open to embracing different values and traditions when it comes to love?
Yeah, I mean, or are we seeing a clash of cultures playing out?
Like a struggle to reconcile these deep-seated beliefs about gender roles and societal expectations.
Right, those things run deep.
They do, and it's all tied up in this passport bro phenomenon.
It is, and I think regardless of your stance on it, it really forces us to confront these questions.
It does. It makes us think about our own cultural biases, whether we realize we have them or not.
And how those biases shape the way we view love and relationships.
Like what we're attracted to, what we expect from a partner.
Exactly. It all goes back to that.
So the big takeaway here is open-mindedness.
Right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Being willing to challenge our own assumptions and really listen to different perspectives.
Absolutely. We can't afford to cling to outdated norms or make judgments based on stereotypes.
And whether or not you agree with the choices these men are making.
The passport bro phenomenon raises some really fundamental questions about love, about culture, about the future of human connection.
Big questions.
They are.
So, as we wrap up today, we want to leave you with this. Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep an open mind.
The world of love and relationships is vast.
It is.
And there's always something new to discover.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of passport bros.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it.
And remember, this conversation doesn't end here.
Right. Keep thinking about this topic.
And how culture impacts all of our views on love and relationships.
We'll see you next time.